Welcome to the Nova Wealth Show. I am your host, Amy Novakovich.
And I'm Jim Novakovich. We're a husband and wife team and co-founders of Nova Wealth Management.
We also teach you how to build wealth, advise you how to keep it, and how not to get taken advantage of. So let's get started. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Nova Wealth Show. I'm Amy Novakovich, certified financial planner and chartered retirement planning counselor. This is the show where we transform your relationship with your money and transform your life. We want to help you grow and protect your money, and we want you to not get taken advantage of. So we do everything we can to give you insight and information on how to do that. A lot of you know my own story. You know, I'm a mom of four and a business owner with my husband. And where I want to go is who I am interviewing today. The woman that I have as my guest today is someone that I admire so much. I mean, we're probably not even going to cover everything that she has done today. This is just like a third of a page of what she has done. But Sharon is an entrepreneur, author, international speaker, and a licensed CPA. And most importantly, a mother and a grandmother as well. She is founder of CEO of Pay Your Family First, a financial education organization, which again is where I aspire to be. Regarded as a global expert on financial literacy, Sharon has served as a national spokeswoman and presidential advisor. This is crazy. In 2008, she was appointed to the first President's Advisory Council on Financial Literacy. The council served both President Bush and President Obama, advising them on the need for financial literacy education. Sharon co-authored the international best-selling book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and she was CEO of the company for 10 years. As a result, she was also reached out to by the Napoleon Hill Foundation to help out with Think and Grow Rich, hence the reason why my book behind me. In 2012, Sharon went on to her next project, and we will talk about what moved her into this, but the Play Big Movement, which is an online course and forthcoming book about rising above whatever is stopping you from thinking and acting as to your greatest potential. Welcome, Sharon Lechter. Thank you so much for being here. I am so honored. Thank you so much.
I'm delighted to be with you, Amy, and absolutely, I think you've accomplished a lot already in your career. But I appreciate your kind comments.
Thank you, of course. And I know we want to get to obviously talking about financial literacy and financial freedom to help people, but I need people to know more of your story. If they don't know your name, they certainly have read your work or known about what you have been doing. So talk about, where did all this motivation come from? How did you grow up? Because you just nonstop go-getter. Where did you grow up? Tell me about how you grew up.
Well, I was a Navy brat. My dad retired from the Navy when I was 8 when we moved to Florida, and both my parents were very entrepreneurial. In fact, I swear I did not want to be an entrepreneur. We lived in a house between my mother's beauty shop and my dad's used car lot.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he had rental real estate. He owned orange groves, and he still worked full time for Martin Marietta. So we were, I grew up in that environment, had to go help him clean bathrooms before we turned a rental property over. And I said, I'm never going to own rental
Never
real estate.
doing this.
I'm never going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to go get, I got great grades. I went to Atlanta, started with the Big 8 accounting firm. At that time, there were Big 8, and said, I'm going to become a partner. I'm going to just, hit the top of my success and retire. And by about the ripe old age of 25, when of course we know everything, I said, gosh, if I'm going to work this hard, I should be working for myself, not for someone else.
Right. I know that feeling.
That's when I woke up and my own entrepreneurial bug bit me, and I started building companies and went on to, first company I went to was kind of a disaster from a business perspective, but that's where I met my husband. So
see, everything happens for a reason.
as Napoleon Hill says, every adversity creates a seed of an equal or greater benefit. And I got instant feedback. So we're celebrating 38 years of marriage this year.
Oh my goodness, congratulations.
But went on, and our kids didn't like to read, so I met the inventor of the first talking children's books that have the sound strips down the side. So
they're electronic ones.
Yeah, back in the late 80s. So I helped grow that industry from 87 to 91 when we sold, and that's when we relocated here to Arizona. And my oldest son went off to college in 92 and got himself into some credit card debt. And so,
oh boy.
December of 92, he came home and asked us to bail him out. We wouldn't do it. But that's when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial literacy and financial education. And fast forward a few years is when I met Kiyosaki, because he'd gone to see my husband. Mike's an intellectual property attorney.
Okay.
And he had this idea for a board game called Cash Flow. And I met him at the first beta test, and it was drawn out on a piece of butcher block paper, and the different playing pieces were different caliber bullets. Great first impression for a
Wait,
mom.
so it started as a board game?
Yeah. Yeah. Rich Dad. We actually,
Oh my
the
goodness.
name of our company was Cash Flow Technologies, and it was based on this idea for a board game. And I volunteered to help him because of my background with the talking book industry, and we had games as well. So I love the concept. So I was just helping him as a friend. And halfway through, he told me he was going to charge $200 for this board game. And I said, you probably need a brochure or something, because that's pretty pricey. And
Yeah.
so Rich Dad, Poor Dad was actually written as a brochure to sell the board game Cash Flow.
Oh, I see.
We never expected it to take over. And certainly we thought that was one and done. And we got such demand for more. We ended up, okay, we'll do a trilogy. So we wrote Cash Flow Quadrant and Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, thinking that that was it. And no, 15 books later, and then a whole new series that I brought in other people, subject matter experts, and we did Rich Dad Advisor Series. I had another 10 books there. So we actually became a publishing company that had games as well, not a game company that had a book brochure. So.
Right. Oh my goodness. And are you involved at all in it today? Or you kind of finally stepped away from that? Because that's
in 1997 is when we launched Rich Dad, and we formed the company that year. 10 years later, in 2007, I was no longer aligned with what Robert wanted to do, our personal missions. He wanted to go into franchising. It's a great model for us, very nice financially, but it was not a good model for the franchisee. So I made the decision to step away from Rich Dad. And I often tell people, and for everybody watching and listening to this, sometimes you have to close the door, not knowing what's on the other side. But you have to close it for other doors to open. And that's a few months later, I got the call from President Bush asking me to be on the first President's Advisory Council. I wouldn't have gotten that call had I still been at Rich Dad.
Oh my
So,
God.
it was like walking away from your children. 15 books. Anybody that's written a book, it's like giving birth. It's just crazy. And I walked away from what I thought was my legacy. I thought Rich Dad was my legacy, but somebody upstairs said, no, there's much more for you to do. And then a few months later, in March of 2008, I got the call from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I certainly would not have gotten that call had I still been at Rich Dad.
Right. Absolutely not.
After having built the largest personal finance brand in the world, I was asked to step into the largest personal development. What an incredible honor. Because I read Think and Grow Rich. You have it on your table there. When I was 19. Didn't realize the impact it had on me until I was in my 30s. But I've really enjoyed the association with them. I have my own company, Pay Your Family First, and have written 3 books with them, and I have 3 more in process. So that kind of gets you. I also am on a National Financial Literacy Council for the AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants.
Right.
So,
I mean, it doesn't end. I mean, so Pay Your Family First. Talk a little bit about that, because I think we always say pay yourself first, but it's interesting that you put your spin on it as pay your family first. But I mean, elaborate on that a little bit if you wouldn't mind.
Well, pay yourself first actually was a term coined by Napoleon Hill. Most people don't know that, particularly if you're in the financial services industry. It's just something that you hear about, and the banks use it well, but it actually was coined by Napoleon Hill. And I take it a step further, because our own personal financial statement is our business. You may be an entrepreneur, you may own a business, but most people don't pay attention to their balance sheet. They only pay attention to the income they make.
Right.
And we really need to build, in order to create generational wealth, you need to focus on assets that generate income.
Well, and that's why debt gets out of whack, because they're only focusing on what's coming in, the income, instead of the balance sheet, right?
Exactly. And so that's my message.
Write that down. I take notes, just so you know.
My favorite word on earth is assets. And I say, assets are sexy. That's what everybody needs to focus on. And a lot of the people watching and listening here, you may be making a lot of income, but the issue is, it's not what you do for your paycheck, it's what you do with your paycheck.
Correct.
So are you reinvesting that in your own personal financial statement? And creating assets creates generational wealth. And that's why I say pay your family first. Focus on buying, building, and creating assets. And that's when you can actually put your head on the pillow at night and know that you're financially free. When your income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses, you are financially free. It can be millions of dollars, or it can be $50,000. It depends on what if you're making $100,000 a year and your expenses are 50, you are financially free. And
Right.
so that's the measure that you need to be looking at, is assets, where you're not your only asset. Too many people, particularly Americans, are still living paycheck to paycheck.
So many.
Yeah,
Even when they make good money, I want to
yes.
point out, sometimes even when they make good money, they're still living paycheck to paycheck.
Have you heard the term Henry?
Henry? No.
Yeah, Henry's is high earners, not rich yet.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and then it's actually a very big issue in America today, not just America, where people, they expand their living expenses as their income expands. So they may have a great income, and because they're focusing on their income statement. And I say you got to wake up and start focusing on your balance sheet. High earners, not rich yet, is actually a huge issue for young people, particularly those that have a lot of college debt.
Well, and business owners, a lot of business owners do this all wrong too. Same thing.
Yep. And that's, I want to wake people up and say, you may be making a good income, but are you really creating financial stability, or are you continuing to create more financial instability? Because the more income you make, the more expenses you make, the harder your fall if something happens to your income.
It's a nasty cycle, huh? Yeah. So talk more about, you transitioned when you were on the advisory council. Were you still a business owner at that time? Or, talk about that, because a lot of us do make that transition. Like I know I did. I worked at a bank, and then you transition into being a business owner, and it's tough. Did you stay up being a business owner that whole time?
Yes, we own multiple businesses. My husband and I own a ranch here in Arizona, and a cattle operation and a guest ranch. And we own multiple companies that we serve on in board positions. So yeah, I've always been an entrepreneur. And when the President's Advisory Council was not a full-time gig. So yes, when I left the Rich Dad Company in 2007 is when I formed my company, Pay Your Family First. And I've continued to create products. I have a product for teens. It's actually a board game called Thrive Time for Teens.
I read that.
Yeah.
So what does that teach teens? Like how would you teach? I have twin 12-year-olds, so I'm.
Oh, you need it for your kids. Definitely. It's got a lot of humor in it. I created it so it would be fun. It really is about teaching young people, not just about money, but every decision they make takes them either to success or not. And so the game really teaches them the decisions they make related to time and money, introduces the concept of passive income, of entrepreneurship, but also good stewardship. And there's lots of humor built in the cards. Like my personal favorite card is you go to a party at your friend's house, parents aren't home, cops come, you get a ticket. So that creates a lot of conversation that some parents don't want to hear, but the kids get into it and they realize, and there's nothing on the card that says there was drinking or anything else, but it really makes them aware in a safe environment of the consequences of making decisions that may not be to their benefit.
That's so true. See, that's a way bigger idea than just money. But we talk about that money leads to your reputation. Your reputation is your resume as a person. Like it all comes back around. It all revolves around, money and time. I wrote down time and money. So I'm keeping track on a board here.
Oh, good for you. Great.
On your point.
Well,
so we'll summarize it.
I say money, you're either a master of your money or a slave to it. And the sooner you can train yourself to be a master of your money, the more life will bring to you. Because what happens is when you're only focusing on the stress around money, you're thinking negative thoughts. And as you know, Napoleon Hill is the one who really first talked about law of attraction. So you're thinking negative thoughts about money. And certainly as children, I ask people all the time when I do events, what did your parents say about money? They said, well, save your pennies, save for a rainy day. We can't afford it. Money doesn't grow on trees. And all of those comments have one thing in common. They're negative. And so we grow up hearing money negative. And so it absolutely makes sense that we grow up with this idea of scarcity. and fear around money. And once we can identify where that came from, we can release it and start realizing that it's never been easier to create wealth than it is today, to start a business, because of the internet, because of the opportunity. The playing field has been leveled, and people just need to take action. And that's the one thing. People sit back and expect things to come to them. And it's, we need to take action and take responsibility for our own financial lives.
That's the hard thing right there, so that's where the whole Henry comes in. So I do a lot of financial planning, just involved in the middle of all the investing that we do, but we just do financial planning included in what we do. But when I'm doing the financial planning, I'm realizing they have some really bad habits, right? So we try to show the numbers and say, look, if you change this habit, this is how it affects your next 5 years, 10 years, and so on. But sometimes that's not enough. What is it, Sharon, that you say to somebody, like, I can show them the numbers. I can say, like, the numbers don't lie. I can show them this. But what do you do to get somebody to take that action that you talk about is so important?
Well, part of it is consistency. In Outwitting the Devil, which is one of the books that I did with the foundation, actually was written by Napoleon Hill and hidden away for 73 years. And in it, he introduces the concept of drifting, which is where you just go with the flow. You're not in control of your own life. You have the thing, well, whatever, you just, you're like a lemming. And how important it is for people to take a stake and take an interest in their own lives.
They don't want to deal with it until it's a problem.
Right. And then he also introduces something called hypnotic rhythm. And it's all about habits, as you said. We talk about, you've heard the comment, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Well, that's because they've established a habit and they keep repeating it.
Right.
So to break that habit, for people to really change something when it comes to money, they have to go to the source of why those habits started. And then instead of going from here to here, I talk about, let's go from here to here. And when we have a little win, then that's going to give you self-confidence to go to here. And all of a sudden, I tell people, it's like losing weight. If I set a goal to lose 50 pounds, I'm probably going to give up the first week.
You get discouraged.
But if I say, well, let's lose 5 pounds, and I can accomplish that, then I'm going to feel more strong and more proud of myself. So I'm going to do another 5 pounds. Same thing goes for money. If you can change one habit. So for instance, when I talk to somebody who's in a lot of debt, I go, instead of looking at your credit card that has the highest interest, let's look and see which one has the lowest balance. Let's pay that one off. And then you're going to feel good about the fact that you've actually gotten rid of something. Then we can start looking at the others. But again, it's all about that.
I do start with the highest interest rate.
What's that?
I said, that's interesting, because I do start with the highest interest rate a lot of times, because I know dollar for dollar, that's where they're getting hurt the worst.
And you and I know that.
Yeah.
But when the highest interest rate is also their highest balance, it's going to be frustrating for them to get it paid off. Now, if we can find them a way to get that change to a lower interest rate, of course you want to do that. Right. But again, it's all about that self-control and understanding this hypnotic rhythm that's been negative needs to be changed to something positive, so that the new habits come in and support them in a long-term basis. Because the same thing with people who lose weight and then they gain it right back, they haven't really changed their lifestyle.
Right. That's the problem. They're just trying to make a temporary change for a quick instant hit. You know what I mean? They're just trying to do something for the short term feel good, right now that feels great and that's what I'm going to do, but it's not for the long term. So we always try to say, like, every dollar you make today is not for today. But again, sometimes it still doesn't hit home. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so curious your opinion, especially with the whole, you just mentioned a tip with the debt, but I'm so curious your opinion, because I have this happen a lot, about children, adult children. That's a very important word that I missed there. Adult children still being dependent on their parents. Even college, you had mentioned student loans. So I'm very curious as to what your answer is on this. But like, if a mother and a father is severely in debt, and I'm trying to do financial planning to get them out of debt to start saving for their future, because they're approaching 50 and they have to, but they're paying for all this money for college, how do you get adult children to stand on their own? And I feel like that's the first step, don't you think? Or no? What do you think about that, paying for kids?
Well, and that's a societal issue we have today. So many people, they call them helicopter parents, or They want to be their kids' friends instead of their parents. It's a huge issue. And the biggest thing is, are you really being a parent or a mentor to your child, or are you enabling them? And what happens, I use, and I'm going to take you back to younger children, the greats. You have 4 children. I don't know how you're old.
The other 2, the twins are the oldest, and then I have a 4 and a 2-year-old.
Okay. All right. So when you end in 3rd and 4th grade, and they have the great science fair, right? You go in and you see the science fair, you can immediately see which ones the parents did, right? Almost immediately, right? And so the parents are feeling good because they're such great parents, and their kids think look so great. And they think,
they get first place.
Yes. My kids think I'm the fantastic parent. Well, your kids may actually think, mom and dad don't think I can do it on my own.
Ooh.
And then that gets repeated. And then they get to the point where they go, well, why should I even try? Mom and dad are going to step in and get this done. And so what happens is, instead of being an enabler, you actually become a disabler. You're disabling your kids from being able to stand on their own 2 feet. And it's something you have good intent.
I need you to talk more to my husband.
Yeah.
Let's get him here. Where's Jim? Yeah.
Good intentions, but the results are certainly not what you want them to be.
Yeah, right.
And that's part of the issue of you talk about changing habits. In my world, where I do a lot of speaking and a lot of seminars, one of the biggest things is people go to a seminar, they get all revved up and they get all excited, and then they go home and regurgitate on their family and their friends everything they heard, and it's like, whoa, back off. And they step back into the same environment, and therefore they don't put anything into action. Same thing on your financial side. You've created an environment that has gotten to you to where you are today. So all the decisions that you've made, all the choices that you've made before today is why you are where you are today. So if you want something different, you need to start making different choices. And that different choices is not just about money. It's about how you spend your time and who you spend it with. And your environment is very, very important. If you wanted to do something different, then you need to change your environment as well.
Well, and it's about priorities too, don't you think? I mean, it's not even like I can change my environment, but if I'm changing my environment towards the wrong priorities, then that's bad. Oh, well, I want to change my environment. I want to live on a yacht, so I'm going to go buy a yacht. This is a true story. I have clients that said that their plan is to go live on a yacht. Meanwhile, he bought a yacht and he couldn't afford the expenses yet. It's like, like I feel like priorities have to go hand in hand with that, right?
Yeah, the proverbial buying a boat. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that, is something that, and that's just being out of touch with reality and people putting their head in the sand.
Being real, you gotta be real.
My dad told me, map doesn't do you any good if you don't know where you are and where you want to go. And a lot of people, and I'm sure you find this with your clients, they don't really even know where they are financially.
No.
They just want to hand it to you and have you make them rich. Right. And it's like, that's the mentality that's gotten them to where they are today. And part of it, and it's amazing the dawning that happens. And it may not be a good picture. It may not be happy news, but it actually gives them a place to begin and understand that
they need that starting point.
Yeah. And that starting point with you as their guide. I tell people, don't try to do it on your own. Find someone that's an expert that can support you, because your years of experience, Amy, and all the multiple clients that you have, when you sit down with a new client, you can automatically recognize small things that they can do to make a big difference that they have a clue. And that's why it's important to have that mentor, to have that advisor that can help lead you in that direction and hold your hand.
Yeah. Well, we talked about, well, I shouldn't say we, I felt like it was we, but you just did a live on trust. So yes, we did not talk about it, but you did a live on trust, and I watched it because that's a big issue in our industry, as you know, is trusting the right person. And they're working on it. And this is something that they probably should call you back and be like, we need another counsel, Sharon. But they're working on this. They're slowly getting away from the commission world and more into our fee-based world, which helps. They're also doing other things, but you have to know who you can trust. What would you say? And I try to educate people on this as much as possible, even when they're a prospect and they come in my office. look, here are some of the red flags. When you're looking for someone, even in the world of CPAs, right? You have to see some of the red flags in professionals. So what would you tell people if they're out there looking for a professional right now? You know, how should they know who to trust?
Well, don't ask the guy in the taxi for a reference. I mean, part of it is when you're looking at, you know, they talk about your network is equal to your net worth, right? Your net worth is equal to your net worth.
Heard that before. Yeah.
You know, and it's something that if you have an opportunity and you recognize that you want to grow, find somebody is where you want to be, and then find out who their advisors are.
Ooh,
and see
that's
if you
good.
can step into that world, because that world may be uncomfortable for you, and that's okay, because you know the greatest success is outside your comfort zone. If you want to really change your circumstances, then you need to take a risk and step outside. You know, when I first made the decision to leave public accounting, I was on a very fast track, and when I had this offer to go with a client, I sat down. I remember sitting in my apartment in Atlanta, and I did the pros and cons before computers on this old yellow legal pad.
Hey, I still handwrite things.
Yeah. And it didn't help me a bit. I could argue either side.
Right.
You know, the entrepreneurial brain and the accountant brain, and they were at odds.
Devil's advocate no matter what you do.
That's right. But my hand kind of took off and wrote across the top of the page, why not? And that really is still my personal philosophy today. Because when you ask somebody why, you're expecting somebody else to give you an answer. If you say why not, that comes from within. Why not do something different? Why not take the path less traveled? Why not discover and remain curious and create? You know, creativity and curiosity sometimes gets beaten down when we're in a school or when we have a career and we get into, you know, comfortable in our salary. So we get a little complacent. And then we have a chaos.
That's what it is. It's them being comfortable. You know, a lot of people are uncomfortable with change, or they have a fear of failure.
Right.
And I'm sure that's what you talk a lot about in that Play Big movement, right?
Yeah, I constantly challenge myself to do something different that I haven't done before, even though I don't need to. I'm fine. You know, I've been financially free for many years, but at the same time, you know, zest for life and living comes from challenge and change. And you know, we get a little too set in our ways, and we don't really. And I don't think we have the level of enjoyment of life. We don't get that little adrenaline flowing, and we don't discover new things.
And what do you say to people that want that work-life balance? Like I know what I say, and I just say, you know, my work is my life. Like I truly love what I do. And
you just hit on a huge sore point for me. So I'm happy to talk about that.
Okay,
I don't believe in work-life balance. I think the word balance only belongs in the yoga studio or dance studio. We all have and that's what actually one of the reasons that triggered me to write Think and Grow Rich for Women, because for many years I resisted doing something specifically for women because I thought the laws of success were the same for men and women. Right. But then as I've gotten older, I realized even though they're the same, men and women approach them very differently.
Well, we process things differently.
Yeah. And I was getting really tired of all the women complaining and criticizing about the men standing in their way. I said, you know, stop it. If you're going to be negative, you're just going to attract negative results. Let's celebrate the progress that we've made. Let's celebrate the men that have opened doors and helped us along the way. And if we start celebrating that, we're going to see more change more quickly. Is there still room for improvement? Absolutely.
There's always room for improvement.
Yes. Do we need more women on boards? Yes. Do we need more women CEOs? Yes. But do you think that we're going to accomplish that by yelling and criticizing the guys that are in the boardroom?
Poor me.
Yeah. So I think, you know, our approach needs to be different. And the second reason that I wrote Think and Grow Rich for Women is this concept of work-life balance. Okay. We have one big life. A dear friend of mine coined that term, and I got her permission to use it as the last chapter in the book.
One big life.
One big life. We have our work life. We have our family life. We have our physical life. We have our spiritual life. We have our financial life. All of those things work together to be who we are. And if you wake up one morning and you feel like you didn't spend enough time with your kids yesterday, just make a different choice. Yeah. Don't spend precious time today worrying about what happened yesterday, because then you're just prolonging the issue.
Right.
You know, we each, as I said earlier, you know, if you want something different in your life, make a different choice.
Make a difference. Yeah, if you want something different, make a difference. Yeah, that's great. So talk about how you are making a difference. That's a great transition into the Play Big movement, because this is something not new, but fairly new for you in the last like 4 years or so, right? And
well, actually, just within the last 6 months, as I've launched this new movement. And I'll tell you the background to it. And I thank you for, I've been around a long time and I've had quite the career. And about a year ago, I was kind of thinking about retiring. And the reason I was doing that is that in 5.5 years ago, we lost our youngest son, and that was December of 2012. And I was at the height of my success. And so I continued working, but it was like, sometimes you have something that just stops you in your tracks. And
well, I would say that's one of the worst things. That's one of the only things that could stop somebody like you in their tracks, Right.
It's not something that you wish on anybody on earth. We're not supposed to outlive our children. And it took me months to even get out of bed. It was a very difficult time. And I really put my life in what I would call autopilot or neutral. Most of my life, I talked to you about the talking children's books and Rich Dad. I always drove to be number one.
Yeah.
With the talking books, if we want to have a great success with this new technology, let's go to Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street.
Let's take it to the next level. Yeah.
Right. With Rich Dad, if we're going to make this a book company, let's go to Warner Books. If we want an infomercial, let's go to Time Life. Always driving to be
Let's just be a production company.
Yeah. That's right. And so that's how I've lived my career. And certainly when I left Rich Dad, I said, okay, I thought Rich Dad was my legacy. So now I have to reestablish Sharon Lechter outside of Rich Dad. And then I had the incredible honor of the President's Council and of course, Napoleon Hill. But at the end of 2012, it was like, I started playing small. I stopped driving myself. And that's only the way I knew how to do business. And so after a couple of years of being in this autopilot neutral zone, I've still been busy, thankfully, because I established a success, but I knew that I was not living up to my purpose. And in fact, I think I got a few taps on the shoulder from my son saying, get over it, Mom. You need to, get back out there.
I'm good.
Yeah. But I was really thinking about a year and a half ago that I really should probably just wind it down and just do a few speaking gigs, and because I wasn't feeling nourished by what I was doing.
Right.
I wasn't having that level of energy that I was used to. And I actually got a lot of pushback from my family and my friends.
Oh, I'm sure.
My clients, because I said, you're not going to be happy retiring. And I kind of knew that inside, but it was also like, okay, in order for me to really launch into something new, I got to force myself. Okay. Because I've gotten into this cycle, this hypnotic rhythm of just being reactive instead of proactive. And it's still working for me financially. It's, I'm still staying busy, but it's not nourishing me. And so I said, okay, I have to make it public. I got to put a stick in the sand. And so
absolutely
made a commitment in December, and we started working on it in January, creating Play Big Movement, which is me playing big again. And what I want to do is invite people to join that. You can go to there's a private Facebook group, Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter. It's free to join. Okay. My website, sharonlechter.com/playbig. And I have the podcast, which I'd love to have you as a guest on mine as well.
Oh, that would be I'd be honored.
Talking about the things that I have done in my career to play big, and then how those things still apply today, but what needs to be done today. And then I'm sharing the things that I'm doing to start rebuilding my brand, the Play Big Movement. And I'm inviting people to come along with me. I've just launched, and it's still actually in the soft launch, so I haven't done it publicly yet, a course, the Play Big Movement course.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Is that around financial literacy, or is that actually?
It is. It's actually divided in 2 parts. And right now, the first part is free, and it's 14 modules. And the first section is getting from financially frustrated to break even. All right. And that's where you really are focused on your income and expenses, right? You have to be. You have to get out of debt, understanding bad debt, good debt. And then the second part of the
cash flow piece.
Yes, right. And the second part of the course is the Play Big part, which is getting from break even to financially free and creating a life of significance and contribution. And by doing that, certainly you know that you're focusing on income and expenses in the first half. In the second half, you're really starting to focus on buying, building, and creating assets. We talk about how to do that. We talk about how to expand and leverage your current network, and how to find new resources and new individuals, new mentors that can help take you to the next level.
So that's a little nugget right there that you gave away and you didn't even realize it, but starting with your network, because that's a lot of questions that I get is, well, Amy, if I need more income, where do I even start? You know, it's not as easy as, oh, I can just put, you know, $100,000 in this investment. No, I need to create that $100,000. Where do I start? And you just gave away a nugget. You didn't even know it, of start with your network.
Yes.
Start with your network to gain clients.
Start with your network and realize, you know, a lot of people think, well, I'm going to get more shifts, or I'm going to get a part-time job. I go, no, you know,
Right.
let's think about something that can grow. Let's stop exchanging. Maybe you need to invest. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, you got to invest a lot of time. You got to work hard to build something, but build something that could eventually be throwing off the income without you having to be there.
There you go. See, that is right there. Like, that's, some people have that dream, but to them, it's just a dream. To them, they don't think that they can really get there. So I think the Play Big movement, and I commend you so much on doing that. It's almost as if that's what God's plan was the whole time, because I have a feeling you're going to drag some people into that Play Big movement that need you more than you even realize, and you're going to save their life.
Well, I'm doing it. I'm really doing it in honor of my son. And you and I both work with the same folks, Steve and Hank out of New York. And one of the first calls I had with them, they talked about, well, Sharon, you're such a success. You know, are you going to be willing to listen to us? And I said, well, yeah, old dogs can learn new tricks. But part of it was really kind of funny. I share this quite often because it was such a perfect representation. I said, you know, you're such an authority. You know, one of the things we're going to give you as feedback is that you need to be more vulnerable. And we want you to share the story about your son. It's not something that I didn't share. I didn't ever want to feel like I was capitalizing on losing my son, but it's a natural part of who I am.
Of course.
And so this year,
well, and some people can really relate and then appreciate you being vulnerable, because then they know you as a person, and not just what you talk or not just what you do, but they know you as a person. I think it's great.
Well, it's really been magical, because the feedback and the outpouring of love and the outpouring of people saying, oh my God, I lost my child. Or, I mean, it's just been unbelievable, where people feel the opportunity and the ability to really share their own stories.
Yeah.
It's just been such an incredible honor for me to be driving this initiative. But our first conversation, I couldn't even say I said, you want me to be more vulnerable? It was hysterical. I couldn't even say
like
the
a
word.
Stutter. What do you mean?
We're still working on it. And that's something that, you know, every one of us, everybody watching and listening to this, you may not have lost a child, but you may have had a business partnership breakup, which I've been through that too. You may have had a marriage breakup. You may have had a dear friend or somebody close to you pass away that's impacted you. It doesn't have to be a financial loss. It could have been a huge emotional loss, as it was for me. And the issue is, you're still here. God still has more for you.
Amen.
There's a bigger world, and there are people out there that can benefit from you, and everybody's an expert. And people say, you know, they look at my resume. Yeah, I accomplished a lot in my life, but I've also been around a long time, and I have that why not philosophy. So I challenge.
Yes, but a lot of people have been around a long time and have not been advisors to the president, Sharon. So well, that's not an excuse.
But they may be an advisor to their children's school, and that's just as important. And so it's, you know, I absolutely know that everybody is here for a reason.
Yes.
And if I ask people one-on-one, do you think there's more for you to do? 100% of the time, yes.
Always, yes.
And so how do you find what else there is to do? It's by stepping outside your comfort zone and realizing that there are people there that are willing to open doors. That's why the importance of mentorship is so, so important, because, you know, if you want success today, it's kind of speed to market. So you want people that can open doors for you and help steer you around pitfalls. And that's what, you know, being human is all about. And as you look at your life, you say, you know, is this all there is? No, there's a lot more for you to do. And all you need to do
and it's so much easier today now with social media and everything, people getting their message out. I mean, it's insane. I can't believe, you know, I didn't do it before I met Steve and Hank, but I can't believe, you know, the impact that you can make on people just via social media. Like just you sharing your story on social media, like you're impacting hundreds, if not thousands of people versus just you and me talking in a coffee shop. You know what I mean? It's different today.
Yeah, one to many is very important. And it's something that, you know, it gives you the opportunity to leverage what you've already learned and what you know. And it's amazing to me. You know, there's sometimes like I did 3 events in San Diego, then came home for one night and got a plane to go to Tampa to speak at CEO Space. And there was a part of me that says, oh God, I don't want to get on a plane.
Right.
You know, I get there and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like walking into a reunion of dear, dear friends.
Yeah.
And one individual come up that I've never met before and say, you know, my life would not be what it is today if it weren't for what I learned from Rich Dad Poor Dad or Think and Grow Rich. And you just realize, you know, I'm here. That's why I'm here. I'm here. I need that kind of encouragement.
To transform lives.
To know that something that I've done or I participated in has helped people take control of their own lives. There's nothing better than that. And there's no better food for the soul. So,
well, because you can never get more time. I always say, like, you'll never get to, you know, retirement and be like, oh, I wish I would have saved less, or I wish I would have done less. You know, you can never get more time. And so it's so valuable what you're teaching and this message that you're spreading. You're such an inspiration, and I know you've impacted so many people. And I encourage you, all of you out there, to go out right now to Twitter and follow her at Sharon Lechter, because everything that you are doing is moving people in the right direction. And I wanted to summarize this before I let everybody go. So here's some of the tidbits that I got. Is that that's not backwards, right? You can read that?
No, I can read it. Yeah.
Okay. So create your financial balance sheet. That's the first thing we talked about. Being financial free, the definition is when your income covers, which is from your assets, your income from your assets covers your expenses. Henry, which is high earners, not rich yet.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, I was paying attention. You need time and money, not just money. You need time as well. If you're one of two things, you're either a master of your money or you're a slave to it. I love that, Sharon. Do I have your permission to tweet that and use that? I'll
absolutely
credit. That's
absolutely
wonderful. And you have to break your financial life into pieces. You have to take it in steps, not just looking at the end goal. You take it in chunks. And finally, see, my writing started getting sloppy towards the end. Find where you want to be and see who their advisors are. That was a great little tidbit as well. But anything else you want to leave the listeners or viewers leave them with today, Sharon?
Well, I think just an encouragement to you that you are the CEO of your own life, you know, and you are the one that's in the driver's seat. And what happens is, you know, we think we're in a lane, but, you know, you've got a super highway available to you, and you've got a windshield. You can go in any direction you want to. And we have a rear view mirror, and it's very small, only so that you can learn from the past. Don't let the past define you. Don't carry it like a bag of potatoes. Understand, oh yeah, that happened, and I learned this, so I'm not going to repeat it. And then refocus on where you want to go, because you have every opportunity to succeed. And there's a great success that is out there waiting for you, and you deserve it. And so take the action necessary, step outside your comfort zone, find great advisors like Amy that can help you really formalize a plan. And because her expertise is going to support you in defining the right step for you, because she brings such a depth of experience and knowledge from lots of other clients. And so utilize that expertise and have it apply to your own life so that you can get to where you need to be more quickly.
Oh, I love that. That's a great place to end. All of you out there, I hope you definitely, you got all that. Play it back and listen to it if you did it. Thank you, Sharon, so much for being here. I think I've even learned a lot today, but everybody listening I know has learned. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it so much, and we'll definitely connect, you know, even further from here.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks.